out of our honey. If you're like me, you love honey. Sometimes you have a little bit extra. We're going to use it to make some bread today. All right, first we're going to add 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour into our mixing bowl. Next, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of plain table salt. Now that our salt's added, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. We're going to add our dough hook to our mixer. Lock and turn on just to incorporate. Now once we get that incorporated, we are going to add our 2 tablespoons of oil. Fat of your choosing. I use olive oil. It's handy. I always have it in the pantry. The same thing goes with the flour and the same thing goes with the flour and the salt. If you have another kind of salt or flour that you prefer to use, you can use that. You may have to tweak the recipe just a little bit. Not a big deal. It'll still turn out well. It will still turn out well. If you would like to use softened flour instead of oil, you can do that. Any kind of fat will do well in this recipe. Okay, we have our oil mixing in well. I'm going to add about, and I don't measure the honey, but I will say about 2 tablespoons of honey. This is our honey from our apiary. It's delicious. Okay. Now that the honey's in, we're going to add 1 1/3 cups of milk, and I'm using almond milk. Use whatever kind of milk you have. I've actually used half and half before. That works too. If you're a whole milk kind of person, 2%. The more fatty milks do tend to fluff up a little bit more, fluff the bread up a little bit more. However, any kind of milk that you want to use totally works. Now that that's in, I'm just going to crank it up just a little bit. And you may be like me. Right now I'm going to have to scrape down the sides of the bowl because that flour, for some reason, it's just not getting in there yet. And if you're like me and you like wooden spoons, I will do another video of how to make some spoon butter out of your beeswax. So stick around for that one. Okay, and I'm just going to watch this mixture, and what we want to watch for is a mixture that's sticking to each other. It's not sticking to the bowl anymore, and it's not really tacky when you touch it. This may take just a couple of minutes. It shouldn't be too bad. If you don't have a mixing bowl, you can do this by hand. If you have a food processor, you can use that instead. A hand mixer, just a wooden spoon in a bowl, some good old-fashioned elbow grease. Any of those work as well. All right. Now that that's done, we're going to lift our hook, and with clean hands, obviously, you're going to feel the dough. And I can tell that this is perfect. It's not sticking to the bowl anymore. If I pick up this giant dough ball, you can see there's no extra bits of dough stuck to the bowl. You can see a little bit of residual, but that's about it. When I pull my hands away, it's not really sticking to my fingers, anything like that. So it feels Perfect. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take another bowl. You can use the same bowl if you want. I just don't normally because I have mixing bowls that have lids. I like to use my lid. You can also just cover with a damp towel if you want to use the same bowl. That's fine. A bowl. Okay, and this is just because we don't want our dough to stick to the bowl. That's it. And I just use my fingers. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to take our dough out of our bowl and just kind of make it into just kind of a ball. It doesn't have to be super fancy. And plop it in. Okay, now that it's in the bowl, I'm not going to tighten the lid, but I am going to cover it. And again, you can use a damp towel, just anything to keep things out of it. You don't want bugs crawling all over your bread. And now we're going to wait. So we're going to let it rise around 2 hours. Could be a little more, a little less, depends on how warm it is, the moisture content, things like that. But basically, you want to see the dough through the bowl. That's why I like to transfer it to this glass bowl. You want to see it at least double in size. And the more that your bread rises and doubles and triples even, the fluffier your bread is going to be. You're not going to have this dense rock of a bread. Okay, so we'll come back in about 2 hours or so, and we'll check on the bread then. Okay guys, we're back, and I'm going to take the lid off and show you how much it's risen. This is about double, which is what we're looking for. It's filled a little more than half of this bowl. What we're going to do now is we're going to punch it down, get the big air pockets out. We'll sprinkle a little bit of flour on my counter here. Yes, it's clean. And then we'll shape it a little bit, cover it again, let it rise for a little bit longer. Okay? So, punch it down. All right. I'm just going to kind of fold it up just to make it a little bit easier to get out of the bowl. This isn't really necessary. Okay, get the bowl out of the way. Just sprinkle some flour. Doesn't have to be a ton. Really, you just want it to not stick to your counter or whatever surface you're working on. And I like to just spread it around just a little bit. Okay, and shape it into a ball just a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to pop it down. There. Okay, now what I'm going to do is grab a towel, a kitchen towel, nice clean one. I'm going to run it under some hot water. And again, that's not really necessary. It's something I do. And then I'm going to drape it, and the hot water just drapes the bread well, so I know there's no gaps. That's really all that I'm doing. And then we're going to wait 15 minutes for it to rise a little bit more. Then we'll come back and we'll do a little bit more. Grab my towel. Might get a little noisy for a minute. You don't want it super sopping wet. And then I'm just going to gently drape it over my dough. Okay, and now we wait. I'll see you again in 15 minutes. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes and we're back. As you can see, it's risen just a little bit more. We're going to remove the towel, but first we need our bread mold. This is just a 9x5 loaf pan, and you see I refilled my butter bell, so I have this just paper, waxed paper, with some butter residue, and I'm going to use that to grease my loaf pan. And just make sure you really get in the corners. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Now that it's nice and greasy, shiny, we're going to get our bread dough covered. Voila! All right, now we're just going to shape our bread. Okay, so what we're going to do is make a rectangle just to fit into our loaf pan. So I'm going to squish it this way, press it down, and as I'm folding under, and you can start to see the shape of the loaf. Now that's pretty good. That's close enough. I'm going to pick it up, move my pan over so you can see, and then I'm just going to place my dough in the pan. Now that it's in, if there's still some gaps in the corners, you can leave it that way. You can bake it this way. It will be fine, but I like to have that solid loaf shape. This is more of a rustic look if you leave it this way. So I press it down into the corners. Okay, now that we've pressed it down into the corners, I'm going to cover again with the same towel. And we're going to let it rise again, and this time it's going to be about an hour. Okay, and what we're looking for, let me uncover it again, is our dough's about probably halfway to the pan. We want it to get at least to the top. On a nice warm summer day, this will go by really quick. However, in the winter, if your house is cold, may take a little longer, but an average 2 hours is about right. And we'll come back and we'll just keep checking on it. But if you do have the towel draped over like I do, you can see pretty easily when it starts to rise, because the towel kind of sinks in, but when it comes up, the towel will kind of start to rise also. It's fun. It's fun to see. And we'll come back. Okay, it's been about another hour or so, and we are going to put the bread in the oven now. You can see that it's definitely risen. You can see the towel's raised. Oven is preheating to 350 degrees. As soon as that's preheated, I'll toss it in for 45 minutes. Okay, the oven is preheated, so we're just going to take the bread and stick it in now. It'll be in the oven for about 45 minutes. I'm doing the top rack. You can do middle rack as well. Don't want it all the way at the bottom. That's the only thing. I'll set the timer for 45 minutes and we'll come back and check on it. Okay, our timer has gone off, so we're going to pull the bread out of the oven. You can see over here I have a wire rack ready, and I'm just going to put the bread on that once I get it out of the oven. Turn it off. Cup holders. And if you greased your pan well enough, you should be able to just dump it right out. There we go. Beautiful bread. Okay, and that was it. A little bit of time, a little bit of energy, and a little bit of honey. And you can have some delicious homemade bread. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know in the comments if you make some or have any questions. And if you do make some, take a picture. We'd love to see it. See you next time on Apiary Eats.